How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Evil Breed, The Legend of Samhain. This is from 2002 and is directed by Christian Bale and stars Bobbie Phillips, Richard Jericho, and Jenna Jameson. And I guess I should mention that. Jenna Jameson is a famous adult film star, and we flip it to the back, and it says, "Cannibals wreak havoc on Jenna Jameson." She's the marketing of this movie. She's the element that the producers decided to push for a lot of. Two things. One, she's barely in the movie. She's the hiker trying to find her missing friends, and has more or less two scenes, I believe. Second, the film really isn't that dirty. You know, you think getting an adult film star, this would be like an absolute sleazy film or something. It's really not. You know, there are some scenes that are definitely R-rated, but it's not the worst thing ever or anything like that. The biggest thing that gets me with this movie is it's just a little confused on what it wants to be. For example, The Legend of Samhain. This isn't a Halloween movie, and you think it would be. You know, the character is quite often associated with Halloween, and they say, yeah, it's not anywhere close to Halloween, though. Why is it not? You know, if you're a writer, you can just write, "and it is close to Halloween." There you go. Throw up some pumpkins, fun Halloween movie. It's not, and I don't know why. And they also talk about Samhain and the legend and the Irish folklore, and that's not at all what this movie's about. They just talk about it sometimes. They also talk about the famous Irish hillside cannibals, and that's what this movie is really about. I don't know why they talked about one thing. They titled the movie based on the magical element, and it certainly does have weight in what they talk about, but that's not what the movie's about. It's an Irish hillside cannibal movie, and they talk about magic even though it's not the plot. The other thing is, this is also kind of a Scream knockoff, and it doesn't do a great job, but the character's always like, "Hey, this is like a scary movie or something," and it's not a great Scream knockoff, and I'll get into why this doesn't work in a minute, but also, halfway through the movie, kind of, more or less, it forgets it was being a Scream knockoff and becomes a Hills Have Eyes knockoff. And it is kind of weird that the first half is like a bad Scream knockoff, and then they totally forget what they're doing, you know? Overall, this movie's okay. American teenagers visit a cabin in Ireland, get picked off by cannibals. It's a fun B-side slasher, maybe not even B-side slasher movie. It's got those familiar tropes that are, to be honest, kind of comforting junk food. And watching the first half, I wasn't really bored, but at the same time I realized, I'm like, oh dang, nothing is happening yet. And then when it does happen, it kind of shoots off too quickly, and it becomes a totally different movie. I don't want to rag on this too much. It's not the worst movie ever. It's just not really clear what it's trying to be. Not the scariest thing ever. Not the best thing ever. It's not a hidden gem. But at the same time, if you're slasher geeks, if you love the hillside cannibal subgenre, I mean, it's enjoyable as a B-grade kind of just whatever feature. Horror movie junk food, and not even the tastiest junk food. It's not great, but it's totally watchable. I guess let's talk a little bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the movie's about. So I won't cover the end, but I will go through and analyze the movie. But again, I'll be avoiding the end. Anyway, we open up with a prologue couple, because first people got to go in a slasher movie are always the prologue people, a girl and a Tommy Wiseau looking guy, and they're having sex in their tent, and this is one of the more explicit scenes, and it's even not super explicit, but yeah, you gotta hook people right away with the promise of that sort of thing. They hear a noise outside, and the girl says, "Don't go and investigate that noise. That's like something they would do in a horror movie." And he does it anyway, but the twist is this time the girl is gone when he comes back. Okay, I guess. He gets captured quite quickly too, and is taken to the secret cave lair of the cannibal people. I will say there's kind of a funny thing with this movie, is he's strapped to this table, and he has to get his way out, and 3 people in this movie wake up on this table. He has the hardest time getting out. The second guy just kind of gets out really quick, and the third person, they don't even bother to restrain. So it's like, cannibals, you gotta learn to tie a better knot and don't leave knives too close where they can grab them. Whatever. After prologue people are dead, we jump to our real characters, and that's a bunch of American teens in this weird looking little van. They picked the weirdest van they could find, and they're going to go to a small house. Well, it's actually a decent sized house in Ireland, in the middle of the countryside, in the middle of nowhere, to study Irish folklore, I guess. You know, it's supposed to be a school trip, and like the teacher and some of the students will talk about Irish folklore, and they do one scene where they visit ruins, you know, a little star chart thing. But outside of that one scene where they're actually doing school stuff, seems like they're just hanging out in Ireland. Which, to be honest, is what I wish school trips are like. Whenever you did, like, a big thing, you know, a school trip, it was always some coordinator that would try to get every moment of the day planned down to the T. And, they were exhausting. I'd much rather have a lazy, relaxing school trip like this, but at the same time, doesn't feel like a school trip, feels like a vacation. But anyway, the main character, you have a final girl, and they kind of joke, "Hey, if this was a horror movie, you'd be the final girl." And the teacher wants her to get out of her shell and talk to the other students, and she fits the final girl mold, but overall, nothing really pops with her. Like, I can't say what her personality really is other than being the quieter, nerdier girl. Yeah, whatever. She's our main character. But then we get the most memorable character, because this is a Scream knockoff. We have to have the nerd, who, for whatever reason, they also made into the jock. It's really weird to have this guy be this kind of big idiot character and then also really like horror movies. I guess there are people like that, but he just kind of is like, "This is like a horror movie, huh?" And I mean, like, half of his references just aren't great. You know, like, he's driving through the woods, and he says, "Hey, this is just like The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Let me explain that movie to you quick." And I mean, they're in the country, I guess, but we're going for Town That Dreaded Sundown without any specific cues or hints, just anywhere in the country we're going to think of that movie. And then he refers to the movie as taking place in Texas. It takes place in Texarkana. That's half Texas, half Arkansas. And then he says, "Some people think the killer escaped to Ireland." Fine, whatever. But like, he gets to the house and he's like, hey, this is just like the Bates house from Psycho. No, it doesn't look a thing like, that's a very distinctive house. Yeah, I don't know. He's the horror geek. His references are just a little off, and I feel like, I don't know, if you just wrote this better, it could have been a better character. Maybe the idea that he's the jock and the nerd together would be interesting, but as it stands, it just seems horribly misguided. But another scene, and I think this really shows why the movie doesn't work, is they knock off the scene in Scream where they're all sitting together watching a scary movie. You know, it really almost looks like the exact same setup as that movie, but when they watch it, and they watch a knockoff of Halloween, because they, unlike Scream, couldn't afford a real horror movie, they actually watched Halloween and Scream, they watch a knockoff of Halloween, and they're all complaining about it. Even the nerd, and I think that's where it doesn't work, is, you know, yeah, you can laugh at horror tropes even if you're a horror fan, but look at Scream. You know, some people were complaining in the crowd, but you had Randy, who knew that, yeah, tropes were tropes, but he was dying to defend them, and he was explaining why he loved it, and he gets in front of the TV and yells, "There are rules!" And yeah, the fact that they're just all kind of ragging on the horror movie, and they're just going, horror movies, huh? That should explain why Evil Breed doesn't work and Scream is a classic, right? Well, and plus Evil Breed's just a knockoff. But anyway, in addition to that, we of course have the warning character, the guy on the bike from Friday the 13th, the equivalent of that in this movie. You get this Irish guy who's being unintentionally creepy. He works for the renter and helps clean up the place, and he'll say things that sound creepier than they are, but he was born on Halloween, and that means he can see the future? 'Cause the veil between reality is thinner? If you know anyone born on Halloween, ask him to see the future for you, because apparently that's a thing. It doesn't help him out any, though. He doesn't provide any useful warnings, and, yeah, he's kind of worthless. And also, this movie isn't about magic. They put a character in there, his whole point is magic, which he doesn't use very well, and it's not the plot of the movie. Anyway, after that, eventually the cannibals will show up, and eventually we will get some kills. Again, you have to wait about halfway through the movie to get there, but also the kills, a lot of them go way, way too fast. You know, you go from nothing to, bye characters, let's go, and some of them are like key characters, like the more interesting ones you've been following around. And like one of the more interesting characters' death is found with knife in them. That's lame. And like another girl gets like pulled under the bed, and I guess that's it for her. Make your kills count. Savor them. Do some planning. Most of the kills in this movie are a mess, so-so, except for like 2 or 3 of them, and you can tell like these are the ones that they put effort into, and they do get kind of ridiculously gory. It's entertaining. Stupid but entertaining. So there are a few scenes where it's like, this character gets a good grade A death. Everyone else just kind of blow through them. But we're going to take some moments and do the gore effects here. Maybe spread out your budget a little more. Make some of the other characters have better deaths. Because, yeah, it just feels like these are the only moments we put effort into, you know? So, yeah, overall, I don't want to say this is the worst thing ever. It definitely has a sort of strange watchability to it, even though it isn't great. Like, I wasn't bored. I sat there. I watched the movie. I enjoyed some parts of it. And, you know, yeah, it's like, yeah, like I said, it's horror movie junk food, and not particularly tasty junk food, but junk food has something about it where even when it's not good, it is still comforting. And I think that's kind of what this movie is. I wouldn't recommend paying too much for this, although I think in a lot of used movie stores this is only a couple bucks. If you stumble across it and you're in for this sort of thing, you might like it, but don't pay a ton of money for it, and don't expect it to be the biggest and best thing ever. And yeah, don't expect it to be too dirty. Again, man, with that back, they really try to hint at a movie that isn't there. Overall, it's okay. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. If you guys want to see me talk about more movies, you should be able to find those there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.